Hi everyone, and welcome to another edition of City Spotlight. I'm your host Pablo Pereira. Today we're talking about the West Nile virus. It's a problem across the United States and a growing problem here in Southern California. So today we're going to take a closer look at the West Nile virus, a virus transmitted by mosquitoes. We're going to talk to the LA County folks and see what they're doing, and we're also going to give you some very simple tips on ways you can protect yourself against West Nile virus in and around your homes. Let's go check it out. So we're here with Bob Saviskas. He's Executive Director of the West Valley Vector Control District. It's actually a longer name than that, isn't it?
Right.
What's the rest of it?
It's Vector and Vector-Borne Disease Control District.
And what does your agency do exactly?
We take care of and we try to monitor and suppress a variety of insects that will transmit disease or discomfort. Mosquitoes are probably the largest amount of work that we do. West Nile virus people are familiar with these days. Also Africanized honeybees we take care of. A lot of work on Lyme disease and ticks, and a variety of other biting or stinging insects.
And your particular coverage area is rather large, much larger than I thought it was.
It's about 700 square miles, and it runs from Mulholland, roughly Drive, and the Harbor Freeway, all the way to the coastline, stretching from Palos Verdes Peninsula all the way out to the Ventura County line.
And how many citizens are you looking out after?
A little over 4 million people, and so 32 cities and portions of LA City and LA County.
And I understand most of us have gotten our property tax bills recently, and there is a little section right on that property tax bill to pay for the work you guys do, right?
This year it's $5.42 per parcel per year. That goes up and down, and we're proud to say that it doesn't vary much more than 5 cents every single year for all the services that we give, and the services are free.
And how much bang for the buck are we getting for that $5 and change?
I think we always think of a can of insect spray that probably costs about $6.50, and then another one for ants, so we do red imported fire ants. So by the time you get done buying a couple cans of a spray, you're probably up to $15 or $20, and for that $5.42, not only do we have all the surveillance, you also get the free service at your house, and any other place that's around that are, let's say, breeding mosquitoes, we'll find that for you and make sure that you're in good shape.
Yeah, we're here today to specifically talk about West Nile virus and the origins of it. And why don't we go into the origins of it, when it was discovered here in LA County and where it came from?
Originally started in New York, and it came in from Europe. It had been there for a number of years. That was about 1999, and it progressed across the United States pretty quickly. It took about 3 or 4 years for it to finally show up in California. The reservoir for West Nile virus are wild birds. The ones that are particularly affected by that would be the American crow, and you see a lot of those dying sometimes during the summertime. We pick those up and analyze them to see if they are dying from natural causes or from the West Nile virus. So once it got here to California, like all the other states, it settled in. Mosquitoes that breed do not have West Nile virus. They pick it up from biting a bird, and then you happen to be a secondary target in between that that they can pass it on to.
And so West Nile virus specifically, what is it?
It's a virus. It is something that you can't take an antibiotic for if you become infected. It has to run its course. There's a couple stages. Most people, about 80%, will not have any symptoms whatsoever, and usually that's associated with being a healthy individual. If you're a little bit older and you have some sort of compromised immune system, if you may be on chemotherapy or have certain dialysis or some other problem, you're much more susceptible to having a severe case of that, which they call neuroinvasive. The step before that is West Nile fever. You have flu symptoms, you have a headache, sore muscles, but within 2 or 3 days it will go away, and you probably didn't even know that you were infected. If it goes to the neuroinvasive, that becomes more severe. A lot of times there is stiffness of neck, disorientation. You'll probably end up in the hospital to be tested, And if they can control it there, then you won't go into the more severe, which is coma, and a lot of times paralysis that goes with it, and there are deaths associated with it.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a moment. We don't mean to alarm people, but it is something you take very seriously. The numbers from 2011 to 2012, what are they?
In Los Angeles County, we are a little bit higher than we were last year at this time. Last year there was 64 human cases and 4 deaths. We now have 72 human cases and 2 deaths. There's a little bit left of the season here, so those will probably go up a little bit higher. But this is sort of reflective of what we see throughout the nation this year. And in fact, the counts are up over 500% throughout the nation. There were roughly 700 cases, human cases last year, and there's over 4,000 this year, and over 400 deaths nationwide. California is also high, up probably about 45% higher. So it's a trend that's running, and it's a lot of it's associated with this virus, with the heat that is involved. And it's been hot throughout the nation, especially here in Los Angeles County.
So we're here with Mark Brooks. He's a field operations supervisor. And Mark, what are we going to do here today?
It's a vacant property that was reported to us by the city of Calabasas. It was made known that there's an unmaintained swimming pool and perhaps secondary sites with a fountain and a bird bath and a jacuzzi.
So what are we bringing with us now?
I have some of our live mosquito fish.
Let's grab those.
And this is standard procedure for swimming pools that go down and stagnate. We give mosquito-free fish out to the public at no charge as well to put in their fish ponds, unmaintained swimming pools, bird baths, that kind of thing. And of course, our technicians in the field will also utilize these fish to their advantage. Once the fish are established in a stagnant swimming pool, it actually changes it into a live fish pond. The mosquito fish eat mosquito larvae, they breed in high numbers, and once they're established, it's a mosquito-free environment. Every mosquito abatement district and vector control district utilizes the mosquito fish to their advantage.
So if I Google mosquito fish, what am I going to turn up?
You're going to turn up, their scientific name is Gambosia affinis. They're originated from South America, and they came into the state of California in 1922. And again, all the vector control districts in the state of California and nationwide, I would assume, uses this as a big part of their mosquito program.
So a house like this, not all that uncommon in this economy these days.
That's all too true, I fear. Many people just no longer can afford their mortgage. And more often than not, we will get vacant property like this simply because they could no longer afford to pay for it. We find these properties in conjunction with city building and safety. We have understanding with the banks as well. And again, once we are aware of the pool, we'll inspect it, stock it with the mosquito fish, and that takes care of it for us.
Yeah, so what's the problem with vacant homes then?
Really finding them initially. That this is the type of thing that we're unaware of until someone lets us know about it. Again, the neighbor probably found this problem, contacted the city contacted the vector control district, and that's why we're here today.
And what will you look for here? Why is a vacant home problematic for West Nile?
Vacant property can tend to have standing water, and standing water can happen from rainfall, it can happen from sprinkler systems, or like we are here today, it'll have a pool that we were made known initially, and that pool does have standing water in it.
So standing water, obviously not only a problem in vacant homes, but it's a problem in homes that are occupied too from time to time.
That's very true. Very often pool filters can go down, the pool pumps can go down, and the water will stagnate. In the hot summer season, it doesn't take long for that stagnation to occur. And 1 week when a pool is active and usable, chlorine, within 1 week it'll start to stagnate and the mosquitoes will go ahead and start to breed in it.
And as our example showed over at the golf course there, when we looked at the mosquito traps, we looked at that kind of airborne trap. We didn't find much in there, but in the one that's simulated maybe a ponding, standing bit of water there, we saw several dozen mosquitoes in there.
Yes, sir. One of the things that we in field operations look for is actually what type of mosquitoes we see in and around the area. Very often we will get service requests, we call them, and they don't know where the mosquitoes might be originating from. Our vector control technicians know that the male mosquitoes never venture far from the water source that they emerged from. So had we not known about this particular site, we could have seen the mosquitoes on site, noticed that they were the male mosquito. Knowing that the male mosquito doesn't venture far from that site, that tells our technician it's within a few houses, one way or the other, where the mosquitoes are originating.
Mm-hmm. And how do you work with the cities on this issue?
Yeah, in many, many ways. Calabasas itself has a building and safety or code enforcement program. They can be contacted by a citizen. The citizen will let them know the concerns of the property. Building and safety will contact the vector control district, let us know what the report is on that property and give us a heads up that yes, there is a unmaintained pool, pond, that kind of thing, and can we come out and take a look-see.
Mm-hmm. But you also go through the bank, the person holding title at the particular time too.
Very often, if there is if the house is up for sale, for instance, or if the building has taken a claim on it, they usually have to leave a contact number, and that contact number is what we utilize to do a follow-up if necessary.
I'm assuming that an area like Calabasas, because of the heat here versus 20 to 25 degrees cooler along the coast, there's more susceptibility to this type of problem here than there would be in some of your other regions.
Yes, the mosquitoes will breed faster here because it's hotter, so that water that's unattended in someone's backyard will produce the mosquitoes at a much faster rate. More mosquitoes, more likelihood of being bitten and transferring the virus to them. Also, the virus is more active and it's more virulent and can be pathogenic much quicker and faster in hotter areas. It seems to multiply inside of the birds at a faster rate.
And why should we as Calabasas residents care about this?
Well, I think whether it's your property or somebody else's, it's going to affect everyone around you. Mosquitoes don't know property lines, and they'll move around, and they'll move up to a half a mile or so in these conditions, so that if you're taking care of your place and that you're taking care of any standing water there, not only are you taking care of your family, but also your friends and neighbors around you.
But we're seeing the statistics going up. Is that a sign that this is only going to continue to go up? I mean, it doesn't seem like there's a real so-called cure to bring the numbers down. It's more citizen action to try to help keep the numbers stable.
Right. It's we can only take care of places we know about, and that we have thousands of sites that we take care of routinely that we can't get rid of the water. Abandoned swimming pool, for instance, on a home that's been foreclosed. But without having the citizens call in and tell us that they're being bitten by mosquitoes and where they're at, we can't do any of the surveys to find out and take care of that problem. So it's a cooperative effect.
Are some people more susceptible to mosquito bites than others? I feel like I am, but is there some truth behind that, or is it just luck of the draw?
No, there actually is. That some people are mosquito magnets. Two of the things that mosquitoes cue in on is carbon dioxide, just exhaling. It also comes out of your pores on a smaller degree. And the other one is lactic acid, and that's usually associated with people, when you exercise a lot, lactic acid will come out. But just naturally, standing alone and not doing anything, some people have those two traits that the mosquitoes will pick them every time.
So it's kind of unfortunate for those of us who have those traits.
If I put you and 4 other people in a room overnight with mosquitoes, you'll probably have all the bites.
Yeah, luck of the draw. Huh? So if you're telling me then if I'm bitten by a mosquito, I need to call you now, or should I not worry about it?
Well, what it is that if you know your conditions around your home, and you go out in the evening and sit on your patio and you're not being bitten by mosquitoes, and all of a sudden now you're starting to swat them away, you should give us a call, because those conditions don't go away by themselves. So we can come out at your site, maybe on your property, maybe something simple that needs to be turned over and the water dumped out from sprinklers that's going into a saucer or something of that nature. If not, then we'll go around the neighborhood and find that source so that everybody can be taken care of. You know, one single female mosquito can lay eggs and then they multiply a week later, and they end up being 8 million mosquitoes in only 3.5 weeks. So it'll take off quick and cause a real big problem.
So if I need to try to do things around my home for myself and my family, what do you recommend people do?
You know, you really need to take a look at your yard. One of the things is everybody runs sprinklers in these hotter areas, and that there's box drains that are on the patio or just off the grass or sometimes in the grass area, designed to take excess water and run it out to the curb. Those boxes are designed to not always get all the water out. The side port is a little bit above the bottom, so there's usually about 1 inch or 1.5 inches of water there. That's something to be concerned about, to make sure that it's drying up. But we recommend putting pea gravel at just that very bottom so the water does run all the way out. It doesn't give the mosquito some place to go ahead and put the larva, the eggs, and then work into the larva. Make sure your gutters are clean and there's not water up there, especially in the springtime. That breeds a lot of mosquitoes. Anything that's a container, especially in the springtime, a very small bucket can produce millions of mosquitoes over a period of just a couple weeks. This time of year, since there's really not a rain problem later in the summer and the midsummer, really look for man-made water sources, your sprinklers. Where does that water sit? Where does it end up sitting for the rest of the day or the week?
And then what types of precautions can I take on myself? What type of sprays? Should I be using those things? Or?
Yeah, if you go out in the evening, let's say you jog or you go walking, at dawn or dusk especially, or any time during the night, we recommend that you put on a repellent. DEET, D-E-E-T is the short for the product that's the most effective. You just put it on your skin areas, follow the instructions that's on the label. If you don't like something that's that kind of repellent, there's organic ones made out of soybeans, oil of eucalyptus that you can buy. The only thing you need to do there is reapply them more often than the DEET.
Mm-hmm. And so when you come into this area, you have how many field officers working in your jurisdiction?
It varies quite a bit. Depending on the summer, we have more. We bring on staff during the summer because it's the hot season and we have mosquitoes breeding. In the off season in the winter, we turn our attention to things like ticks, which are very prevalent from November through May. That's when the Ixodes pacificus, which is the Lyme disease carrying tick, is most active out here on the trails. And this is an area where you get really nice days in the winter. Everybody goes hiking out there, and you have these ticks at the end of the grass blades on the trail trying to attach themselves to you. So different types of times, different types of conditions. We have a varying amount of people to take care of. Out here in Calabasas, they have a full-time zone individual who goes through the whole route, as we talked about, places and things that can't be eliminated with one visit. Underground storm drains are a good example. Is that everyone thinks that they've always been engineered to flow to the ocean, where couplings are undergrounds and they don't quite get the scope of get the water moving out of there. They'll settle sometimes. We'll have a low spot, and so that's a breeding source. So they'll be treating those. They know where those spots are. So the big thing here, as we talked about before, if the citizens call and listen, know about new sites, the ones that we know about, they're under control.
Is West Nile virus something that we can work to eradicate, or are we just going to have to live with it?
It's going to be here all the time. It's what they call endemic, so that it won't go away. It'll fluctuate and go up and down. You may have a high season like this year, and next season maybe you only have half the human cases that go with it. It has to do with conditions, weather conditions, as we talked about, were important, and also the bird population. If a lot of the bird population, like the American crows, die off because of the virus, then there's less of those birds to be the reservoir in the following season.
So we're here with Aaron Arugai. He's a vector ecology manager. Kind of a fancy title, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it sounds good.
What do you do?
Well, I manage the disease surveillance side of the vector control district. So that includes identifying mosquitoes and testing them for viruses, also maintaining our sentinel chicken flocks and taking blood samples from them to also test for mosquito-borne viruses. And then we also do collection of dead birds. Most of the time it's crows, and those are very susceptible to West Nile virus, so we also test crows and other dead birds for West Nile virus.
And so you're out and about how often?
Oh, we have a staff that's out in the field every day. Yeah, and we cover a large area. Right here we have a couple of our mosquito traps. We use basically two different types of traps. One trap attracts gravid female mosquitoes. So when a female mosquito is looking for a source to lay her egg, she's looking for stagnant water. So one trap we use mimics stagnant water. The female mosquito goes down there to lay her eggs. She's
And
sucked
that
into
would
the
be
trap.
that would
And
be
that's the
this
trap
one.
right
So
here.
let's step down here a little bit, and why don't you give me a little bit of a demonstration of what this does?
So here in the bottom tray, we have basically alfalfa infused water. So it's very high in organic matter, and it mimics any breeding source that can be found around someone's home or
Such as what?
like a bad swimming pool, fountain, standing water in a curb or a box drain. So it mimics that type of source, and we leave these out for 24 hours. So when a female mosquito wants to lay her eggs, she deposits them on the surface of the water. So they'll fly in here attracted to this organic water, fly in down here, and they're sucked into the bottom of this collection chamber.
Have we opened this collection chamber?
We haven't opened it yet, so we'll see if we got anything last night. So as you see in here, we have a chamber in here and a fan.
I see something moving.
Yeah, it looks like we actually did get a few in here. So I'll go ahead and lift this up so you can see.
You're wearing gloves.
This is for the chickens later.
Oh, okay.
So right here, if you can see in there, we did collect some adult female mosquitoes. So as part of our surveillance, we will set these out, collect these mosquitoes, and then now we can test them for mosquito-borne viruses. You can see right there, we have, probably 20 mosquitoes that we collected overnight in this trap right here. And these would all be female mosquitoes that are ready to lay their eggs.
Where do the guys go?
Well, the
Dumb question, I know, but
yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
since this is mimicking a source for laying eggs, we won't collect any male mosquitoes in here.
gotcha.
And then male mosquitoes also don't bite people.
oh, I didn't know that.
Females will bite a person and get that blood, and they use that protein to produce their eggs. So male mosquitoes we tend to find in the trap. Occasionally, it's just a bycatch. But basically, what we're trapping for is female mosquitoes that will feed on people, animals, and will consume blood. So this is one way that we do it, and then we have another way over here. So over here we have what we call a dry ice trap or CO2 trap. Now up in this chamber up here, we fill this with dry ice.
Right.
The dry ice, as it gases off, gives off carbon dioxide.
And that's one of the things Bob was talking about that mimics what our bodies
What we exhale
are.
and comes off of our skin. So carbon dioxide comes out of the holes in the bottom of this. As it comes down here and comes over the trap area, mosquitoes can be attracted to the carbon dioxide. They'll fly in close. We also have a small light in here, which sometimes can help draw them in a little closer. And as the female mosquito comes in here looking for someone to bite, she gets sucked down in here. We have a fan that will keep any females that come in here, keep them in this net, and then we can collect those and also use these as a way to test for mosquito-borne viruses. Now it looks like in this one here overnight, we didn't get any female mosquitoes, so that's a good thing. We didn't get any that were out looking for a blood meal. But we did find some that had already previously fed.
Right, so what's the difference?
Yeah, it
then?
depends on the cycle of when they hatched off, when they fed, when they're looking to lay eggs. And it could also be that as a mosquito was flying over here to drawn in by this, there could have been another animal, a bird, or something else it was attracted to also. So it works well to use both types of traps, and then it gives you a chance to collect female mosquitoes at different stages of the cycle.
So by what we've witnessed here, the cycle would tell us there were potentially more mosquitoes looking to lay eggs than looking for a meal. Is that?
Yeah, potentially in this situation, but that doesn't mean there aren't other females out there looking for a blood meal as well.
Right, because you said they could have been attracted to something over here.
Could have been attracted to something else, or the area here, was just more attractive to the females that wanted to lay eggs, and so it just depends. Typically, we'll use both types of traps, and you know, some days you'll get more in a CO2 trap, some days you get more in a gravity trap. It just depends on location. And
All right, so we got nothing in here. We have something over here. You're going to take this somewhere now?
yeah,
What are we going to do with this?
This will be taken back to our lab, and
Okay.
we will identify them to species. We'll separate them out, and then we can put them together by species and test these for mosquito-borne viruses.
Species.
Yes. Now in California, there's over 50 species of mosquito.
Oh, I didn't
So a
know
lot of people
that.
don't know that. They see a mosquito, and every mosquito is the same to them, right? So we have over 50. And one of the most common mosquitoes, the southern house mosquito, is the one that most people come in contact with around their home. That can breed in a backyard swimming pool, a jacuzzi, a pond, and sources like that. So these right here, you know, I don't know. We'll have to look at them under the scope and see what species we have.
Okay, so specifically, I'm going to call you when?
First thing is if you're bit with a mosquito, and make sure that a mosquito will bite you. It won't just fly around and bother you. And but if you're not sure whether it's a mosquito or not, give us a call anyway. We'll tell you real quick what you have going on out there. But that's the number one thing. If you're being bit, if you see areas that are unusual, standing water. Sometimes we'll have cases where a park has a broken water line, and all of a sudden people are visiting there and notice that the water's been there 2, 3, 4 weeks and nothing's been done. Well, they'll breed mosquitoes also. If it's in your neighborhood and you've noticed that all of a sudden there's a house that's been abandoned, maybe through foreclosure, but it doesn't appear that anybody's attending to it, that would also be a time to give us a call. We'll find out if there's a pool there, and we'll make arrangements with the bank to go in and make sure that pool is taken care of so you don't have any mosquito problems.
Mm-hmm. And then the dead birds you mentioned.
And the dead birds are very important. That's a way we can monitor the activity of West Nile virus. Birds have to be less than 24 hours old when they die. So if you didn't see it there the day before and you see it there now, that's time. If it's been sitting there for a couple days, we can't test that the virus is inactive at that point.
So you take the dead bird, you test it, and then what happens?
We add it to the statistics, and what we see is we begin to see how high these indicators. These are indicators that will come before the actual human cases. When we see a large population of birds with the virus, we know it's a larger reservoir statistically. That means the mosquitoes have a lot more birds to pick from that have the virus and can pass it on quicker. And when we see these begin to rise, we can put out these advisories to the cities and to the citizens, letting them know that to keep their eye open and make sure you put on these repellents we talked about, because conditions look like they're more likely that an infection be passed on. And it usually follows with that. After that, within a couple weeks, you see human cases go up.
And I've noticed, I'm pretty sure in the past 12 months, I've seen a few of those West Nile signs up in my neighborhood near here. Does that mean we've had reported cases here in the city of Calabasas?
In this year in Calabasas, actually, 4 of the 5 sentinel flock chickens are positive, so that we know that there's mosquitoes out here that can transmit the disease. We have not had any positive birds that have been turned in. So a lot of times it's not necessarily an indicator that things are okay here. It's that we don't get the calls to turn in the birds to be tested. But I think wherever you travel in Los Angeles County, whether it's this city or anywhere else, you go to dinner someplace at night, and it's not in this city, you should always assume that you can be bit by a mosquito. There's 361 zip codes in LA County, and 131 of them have positive indicators in it. So, and they're all dispersed and spread out. They're not just little hot spots in one area. So you're out at dawn or dusk or at night. Should take the same precautions in any place you're at, not only here in Calabasas.
74, 72, whatever the number was, and the 2 deaths, but you said that this type of problem is not always reported. So the numbers you have are only the reported cases versus somebody who may have flu-like symptoms and never knew that they had this particular issue with West Nile.
Yeah, so the numbers can be a little deceiving, and they say, well, that's not a very big number compared to 4 million or 10 or 13 million in all of Los Angeles County. But if you only have the West Nile fever where you have these flu-like symptoms or a rash for 3 or 4 days and you don't go to the hospital, those are not recorded because there's no way for us to know that you actually were infected. They have done some studies now in the past where where people come in for other conditions or go to their doctor for routine blood tests, and that they go ahead and test those to see if there is a background for this. And they found that a large number of people are positive. They have an antibody for it and didn't realize that they had been bitten and transmitted disease. The only good thing about West Nile virus is that once you've been infected, it appears now that you're immune from being infected again. It's sort of like getting the measles. You get them one time and that's it. So that antibody stays active in your system.
But are you telling people if you feel flu-like symptoms, it's best to go to a doctor under any situation now?
No, I think that's probably overdoing it. I think that if it lasts more than 3 days, I think one of the indicators that you don't see in the flu usually is that there's a rash, a body rash, in over a larger portion of your body, torso area. You see conditions like that you don't normally experience when you're not feeling good with a little touch of a virus or a flu. That's when you need to go see the doctor. Don't wait real long if you're not improving, and that's one of the indicators there.
And pets and horses, things like that, should we be concerned about our animals?
Regular pets, cats and dogs, they don't seem to have any effect, but horses are very susceptible to West Nile virus. In fact, there's close to about 95-98% mortality rate. So if a horse gets infected, they're not going to make it. However, the good news is that they do have a vaccine for horses. Just go to your veterinarian, and it's 3 series of shots, and your horse then is set for life also.
Well, I can see that the swimming pool does have some standing water in the bottom of it. It's quite apparent that it's been offline for a long time. You can actually see the evaporation lines across the top running down to it, which indicates that the pool has been out of service for a long time. Note the debris that is in the pool as well. That's all typical of a swimming pool that's been down many, many months.
And this is one of your biggest concerns when you're talking about West Nile and mosquitoes, is standing water. I mean, that's number one.
That is the problem, standing water, yes, sir.
And we've got Lenny here with us. What's Lenny going to do?
Lenny's going to go and inspect that water. He's going to see if there's any mosquito larvae presently in the water, which will give us an indication on how to proceed at that point. In Lenny's right hand, he has a mosquito larva dipper, and he's going to go ahead and sample the water using that dipper to see if there's mosquito larvae in the water. Now that's what he's doing right now, and he's going to observe whether or not we have any mosquito breeding in it and what stage of development and also how severe of breeding is in that pool.
So why not just drain this remaining water out of the pool and be done with it?
That's a good question. The problem is we're coming into rainfall season, and once the rains come, of course, it's going to go ahead and start to pond again. And that it can be a problem. If indeed there's no mosquitoes in it at this time, we're going to deposit our mosquito fish into the pool, also knowing that the rainfall is going to raise the water level. We've found that there is no mosquito breeding in the water at this time, so there's no need to put any type of pesticides in it to get immediate control. Lenny's going to go ahead and introduce the live mosquito fish into this water in this pool at this time. And again, what that does is it changes this from a stagnated swimming pool that can breed mosquitoes to a thriving mosquito fish habitat, thereby eliminating any potential future mosquito breeding and the continuance of pesticide applications. It's the best long-term control measure there is. It's called biological control. They're very self-sufficient, and once they're established in the pool, they'll live there for as long as the water is in that pool. Mosquito fish came into California in 1922 from South America, and as I mentioned, all vector control districts use this as a major part of their mosquito program. The mosquito fish are very, very beneficial in that they bear live young as well. So there's going to be continual reproduction going on, and they're surface eaters. That's why mosquito larvae can't survive in it. Mosquito larvae have to breathe oxygen, so they're at the top of the water level, and that's right where they feed.
Okay, so we've gone through the pool. There's some other areas here you're concerned about as well.
Yes, sir. Once a certified mosquito technician gets onto a property, he inspects every square inch of that property, not just the target site that was initially reported. And by doing that, you can come over here and see a secondary site that does have strong potential for mosquito breeding in the very near future. As you can see, we have a very nice large ornamental pond type scenario. Fortunately today it is dry. However, with the predicted rainfall just around the corner, our technician is going to realize that this is going to have what we call rainfall accumulation very, very soon. And he will have to come back and take a look-see once the rains do come.
So it won't take a lot of rain in here because you're going to get some ponding before this thing fills up, obviously.
That's right, and you can see the leaves and the grass that are in this fountain at that time. That's a food source for mosquito larvae. They actually need some type of vegetation or organic material to feed on while they're in the water. And of course, a technician will also note that as well. So it's a prevalent source for mosquitoes, even though at the current time there's no water in it.
So what can a homeowner take out of this that's actually living in a home?
You have to be cognizant of your own property and how different sites mosquitoes will try to breed in. And again, even though this site here is dry at the time, with the rainfall that's in the very near future, we know that this will hold water. And again, that brings us back to our mosquito fish. We give them out free to the public. Anytime the mosquito fish are introduced into a pond, a fountain, a swimming pool, bird bath, again, that does the biological control for you rather than the constant need for a pesticide.
But certainly
application.
you're not going to put mosquito fish in a swimmable pool, but what you're saying is we can get mosquito fish from you and put them in some of our working ponds and things like this?
That's correct. Many people have ponds that already have goldfish or koi in them. The mosquito fish are compatible with both of those, but because they're such a prevalent top feeder, which we know is where the mosquito larvae are, we also recommend them using mosquito fish, even if the pool is active and does have goldfish or koi in it.
The goldfish and koi eat the mosquito fish?
No, they don't. No, they are cohabitable, no doubt.
Very good. Okay, and so there's one more spot here that, I mean, we not only have the pool, we not only have this, these people were into ornamental ponds, obviously.
And being a qualified state certified mosquito technician, I'm going to look at every square inch of this, and lo and behold, we will discover something else. As I mentioned, a good vector control official never takes any property for granted, so I am going to continue inspecting this property even though I found a pool and a fountain. And my efforts are going to pay off again in the form of this unmaintained, vacated fish pond. As I look at it, I can see that it's dry at this point, but it's quite evident that it had standing stagnant water in it at one time. Again, I can tell that if it rains, this is going to be another future mosquito breeding habitat. And I will have to come back again once the rain does come, and we'll have to address this as another potential mosquito breeding habitat.
So it's not only this, you're going to get the runoff from the house here, and you know, all it takes is an inch or two of water.
That's right. It doesn't take very much water at all.
And then not only that, but you mentioned not just things like this, but I know you mentioned some buckets, freestanding buckets, things like that too?
Yes,
that's a problem?
Indeed it is. That's all too common of a problem. People will have these type of things in their backyard. We've seen buckets like that, Phil. We've seen wheelbarrows. Anything that can and will hold water does hold water, and that will be a mosquito habitat. Another common one is saucers underneath flower planters. You've probably seen that yourself, and that is enough water to breed mosquitoes. So again, we look for this type of thing. Even though there's no water in that bucket right now, before I leave, I'm going to invert it. That way, when it does rain, it will not fill with that rainwater.
So this is good common practice for homeowners?
Absolutely, absolutely. Tires is another problem as far as rainwater. They will hold water as well.
Okay, so all things, tires, buckets, saucers under plants, all things that we should maintain in our homes.
Absolutely. That's the type of thing that even though you have pristine pools and fish ponds and that kind of thing, those will be a secondary issue that can affect you very, very positively and quickly as far as mosquitoes breeding in them are.
We're standing in front of chickens here. Why don't you describe what we have here?
This is a sentinel flock, and these are out throughout Los Angeles County. We have 20 of these throughout our district.
What do you call this thing?
This is just a regular chicken coop, and there's 5 chickens that are in every one of these coops. And We bring these in the spring, and we test them to make sure that they don't have West Nile virus, and then we use these like patients. We come by every 2 weeks and we take a blood sample and we go and analyze it just as though I would take a blood sample from you and see if there's antibodies to West Nile virus. If there is, then we know that mosquito has come here at night and gone ahead and infected these birds. If they can infect these birds, they can infect anybody, else a human being, a secondary target. We use chickens because they don't have any pathogenic reaction. In other words, they don't get sick. They'll carry the antibody, but they're perfectly fine. So it's good for the chicken, and we get the results that go with it. And so this helps us in the respect that we know there's mosquitoes that can transmit it. We also use the dead birds we talked about because we know that obviously it's infected the bird dies, and we can test that way. And then we do mosquito traps where we pick up the actual live mosquitoes, the adults, and we analyze those for West Nile virus also. So there's 3 approaches. We don't miss anything. It kind of fills in all the gaps.
So you did mention earlier, if I heard you correctly, that there's been some positive indicators with these chickens?
4 of these 5 chickens have tested positive for West Nile virus. So we know that at some point during the evening, we put them outside because then they have the longest exposure as opposed to somebody jogging for a short period of time. They'll have a full night exposure when the mosquitoes are more active. And mosquitoes are just as happy to go ahead and bite birds or birds in the tree or this fowl or human being. They don't care.
Let's be specific then. When you say 4 of these 5 birds have West Nile indicators, what are you saying?
That they've been bitten by a mosquito. We tested their blood and they have antibodies to it. So it says they were bitten by a mosquito that had West Nile virus. That same mosquito could have bitten you, and you would produce antibodies for that also. And as we talked about, you may not have any symptoms, you may get a fever, it may be severe, but regardless of the steps, we could test your blood and say, you know what, you were bitten by a mosquito that had West Nile virus. You just didn't get sick, or you had the more severe symptoms that go with it.
And I'm assuming this is strategically placed. We're right next to the country club, to the golf course here. I mean, you've got water constantly running, you've got ponding and things like that. Is that part of the reason you would put it here? Or?
Well, actually, it has nothing to do with the golf course. The golf course does have a lot of water, but all of this golf course is taken care of very, very well, and we work with them on that. We bring them out to places that are more secure, really, so that there's not vandalism where people come by and believe it or not, they'll let the chickens out and off they run. So it's more strategic, and we space them out. So we have one here, we have one over in Westlake, and there's sort of the spacing is so we get a real good feel about the whole district, about where activity's happening and what's happening.
And let's be clear, these chickens are eventually adopted out.
Yes, at the end of the season, we have people every single year who have larger acreage, and they take these chickens. They're great egg layers, and
we can see the brown eggs in there.
Yeah.
But just because they have the West Nile indicator doesn't mean that the eggs are bad or anything like that?
No, it doesn't. It's non-transovarial, doesn't go into the eggs. And again, these birds don't get sick. They can't pass it on because of that. Their mechanism inside doesn't allow the mosquito to bite them and pick it up and go give it to someone else.
So now we've gone from, these are what we've trapped.
These are what we've trapped.
And this is more of a demonstration.
Yeah, these are mosquitoes that we reared from larval samples that were collected by our technicians. So you can see in the bottom here, this is what to look for around your home. In any type of standing water, these are mosquito larvae here that are wiggling around. People often call them wigglers. And then there's also the pupal stage, the next stage before they become adults. There's some of those in here also, and people call them tumblers because of the way they spin in the water. Now, that's what we want people to look for around their home. Look for standing water and look to see if you have any mosquito breeding in that water. You know, in warm weather, it can be within a week, they can go from hatching off to adult mosquitoes. So, you know, it's really important that people remove any standing water around their home.
And then up here we have...
Up here we have the adult mosquitoes. There's actually males and females in here. Since we hatched them off from a larval sample, we're getting both sexes in this. So we have male and female. And like I said, you know, the male mosquitoes don't bite, only the females do. And if you look really closely, you can see some of the mosquitoes have very bushy antennae, and that is the male mosquito. So
And
it's
how
a
long
li-
do these guys live?
You know, it depends on species. It can be months. Certain species overwinter as adults. Other species overwinter in the eggs or larval stage. It varies from species to species. But they can, you know, we can keep them in a sample and feed them sugar water, which mimics nectar that mosquitoes can feed on from plants. And we can keep them alive, you know, for, you know, weeks in a
And
laboratory
so
situation.
they have to lay their eggs in a water body. Is that
Has
is
to be
that-
water. That's the key. That's why we're always telling people remove standing water and report standing water in your neighborhood. Without any water, you won't have any mosquito breeding.
I mean, the evolution or the I'm not sure I know what the right word is for it, but it's much almost like a pollywog to a frog. I mean, there's no similarities there, but they start.
Yeah, it's just interesting that they have life stages in different types of habitat. You know, aquatic habitat for the larval stage, and then, you know, normal air, you know, for the adult mosquitoes. So, you know, we try to catch them in the larval stage before they hatch off. Once you have adults hatching off, you know, it's much more difficult to control, and control measures sometimes aren't, you know, as effective. You want to catch them in the larval stage, hit them at the source before they hatch off and before they can mate and breed again.
So then you'll take these guys, or both of them.
Yeah, well, these will be saved for testing.
And so how do you test them?
There's different ways. There's certain tests we can do where we actually grind up the mosquitoes and use the fluid that remains from, and mix them with a solution and test that fluid. So there's different ways to do it. There's more advanced testing that you can test for DNA testing, test for virus in there. So, you know, it just depends on what you're looking for.
So fortunately, the chickens have a better fate than the mosquitoes in the testing process.
Yeah, unfortunately, the mosquitoes don't survive the testing, or what's, you know, the chickens. You know,
I don't think you're going to get too many complaints about that.
No, people are happy that we set these traps out and, you know, that we're removing mosquitoes from their area. But the reality is, you know, a small water source can hatch off so many mosquitoes that traps like this really aren't a control measure. They're a surveillance measure. We're not going to reduce the numbers by trapping like this.
Sure.
Because so many can come from such a small water source.
So you're going to come out here, you're going to do this, you're going to check your traps. You've now got your chickens. What's your next step? What are
So
you
next
gonna
thing
do?
we would do would be getting blood samples from the chickens themselves. And we come out every 2 weeks during the warmer months of the year, typically from spring through fall. And we'll take a very small amount of blood. And as you can see here, we have filter paper strips and that's where we apply the blood to save it for testing. So that's the way it's transported. It keeps it stable, and we just have dry blood samples as opposed to taking, you know, liquid vials of blood. And it's such a small amount. It's a very tiny amount of blood. The chickens really don't mind it. And like I said, twice a month, basically, or every 2 weeks, we take a sample.
Well, we've already been told that 4 of the 5 chickens already have West Nile symptoms.
Yeah, so we'll continue to check the negative chickens and see if and that lets us know that there's still ongoing activity as far as mosquitoes that are carriers, you know, biting those particular chickens.
So once they've been detected with the West Nile, there's no point in continuing to...
No, retesting those same birds really would not be of value. You know, no, we don't get any additional information. So we just test the birds that are still negative and keep testing those until we see if there's a changeover and if they end up showing up positive for West Nile virus.
We're almost done.
Almost. However, on my way out, I noticed a drainage grate here that has a cement foundation around it, and
These are typically found in backyards.
very common, especially with swimming pools or ornamental ponds as well. And one has to wonder whether or not there's standing water in that, because that's what it's designed to do, is funnel water. Of course, with everything that's offline, the property being abandoned, if there is water in it, chances are there's mosquitoes in it as well. So we are going to go ahead and simply remove the cover. And lo and behold, there is some standing water in there.
And this is because it's below the level of the drainage pipe.
That's
so you're
all-
always going to get a little bit of standing water in these things.
Yes, sir, that's all too common of a problem with these type of drains. And now that I know that there's standing water in it, I'm going to see if there's any mosquito larvae in it.
You're taking that off the top. You're
Yes,
skimming
sir.
the surface.
Yes, sir. Mosquito larvae have to breathe oxygen, and they would be at the top of the water surface. I am pleased to report there's no mosquitoes in it today.
And so this is one more thing that a homeowner should be looking at.
Absolutely.
It doesn't really take much time. Everything we've done is something you can probably do in 5 minutes around your yard.
That's right, especially after it rains.
All right, we're here with Alex Farasati. He's the Environmental Services Manager for the City of Calabasas. You work very closely with vector control on issues such as West Nile. Tell us what the city does.
Our role is basically to report any problem that we observe within the city, especially in abandoned properties, to the vector control to ask for their support and their technical assistance to come out and take care of the possible breeding locations for West Nile virus. The other thing that we do is basically public education. We try to educate the public through the Calabasas cable TV, through the city's website, through city's e-news, and through the local newspaper about the various aspects of the danger of West Nile virus and how the residents can observe their backyard and report any problem that they may have, either in their community or if they see anything within the neighborhood, they can report to the vector control for immediate action.
So public education is very important in this. I mean, you really are the go-to site. They mentioned, you can call them, but I'm assuming residents are free to call you anytime as
Absolutely. We receive a lot of phone calls from residents that they don't know where to call. We take the information and we call directly the vector control, ask them for immediate action. Or if they want to take action on their own, we just inform them that they can go to our website to find ways that they can deal with the West Nile virus or to eliminate any possibility of breeding in their backyard.
And unfortunately, things such as this home here in Calabasas is a sign of the times, foreclosed homes, and these, as we've heard, are really potential breeding grounds for mosquitoes and potential West Nile cases.
Absolutely. When our inspectors go around the town, if they see an abandoned home that needs maintenance, they look into it and they check to see if there is any breeding ground for West Nile virus. And if they see a stagnant water, they normally make a note of it and they contact vector control, ask them for action on that property.
You came along on the tour with us today and got to see firsthand how these guys work. What did you learn?
I learned a lot. I didn't know that they had a location where they had the chickens for testing. So that was a good thing that they have a kind of laboratory in our city. That's a good sign that we are being closely watched by the vector control. So if there is any problem in Calabasas, they are the first people to know.
Well, that's going to do it for this edition of City Spotlight. We hope you've enjoyed the program. More importantly, we hope you've learned something about the West Nile virus and ways you can protect yourself and your family in and around your home. For more information on this story, you can always log on to our website, cityofcalabasas.com. I'm Pablo Pereira. Thanks for joining us.